Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Davon Underdue, and I am a proud father. Yeah, that was kind of deep, so I need these. I need those. But fatherhood hasn't always been so great for me. When I was younger, it was hard for me to respect my father. There were many shortcomings. Yeah, I know, I used to look good back then. There were many shortcomings like drinking, drug abuse, among many other things. But what affected me the most were the times he would tell me he's on his way to come pick me up. And excitedly, I would get dressed. I want to spend some time with my dad. And I would begin waiting. And I would be waiting and waiting. And he would never show up. I think I really spent more time waiting on my father than I actually spent with him. And when he was incarcerated, he would write me letters and send them to me. But by that time, I was so accustomed to being disappointed that I didn't even bother to read those letters. I grew bitter towards my father, and I grew angry towards my father. And from that anger, I defined fatherhood for myself. My definition of fatherhood was to be what my father wasn't. That was my outline, just to be what he wasn't. But then I became a father while incarcerated. And suddenly a part of me felt just like my father. I felt like I failed already because I knew for the first few years of my child's life, I wouldn't be showing up. So right then and there, I knew I had to rethink fatherhood. I had to get rid of my original outline, which was to be what my father wasn't, and ask myself for the first time, what does it really mean to be a father? I swear to y'all, I took that question and I ran straight to the dictionary. One definition of father is to acknowledge responsibility for. What am I responsible for as a father, and what does that look like? My ways of thinking about fatherhood began to shift as I thought about that question. I began to think about what I had to be, and I quickly realized that being a father is way more than just being what my father wasn't. So with that wisdom, I was able to forgive my father, mend our relationship, and free myself from the resentment and the narrow views that came with that. And set out on this new journey of mine, which is fatherhood. I became a father when I was 28 years old. I was 10 years into my prison sentence, and I'm not gonna lie, I was scared to death. Becoming a father, really terrified me. I was confused. Some nights I couldn't sleep. I didn't know what to do. I was met with feelings of anxiety, feelings of fear. And the only solution that this fear allowed me to think of was to speak to my partner about having an abortion. And it's not that I didn't want to become a father. It's just that I didn't know what that would look like for me at that time because that wasn't the way that I envisioned becoming a father. But when I finally accepted the fact that she was going to have our son, I thought about that fear again. And then I thought about my son. And I said to myself, never do I want my son to be that afraid in life. So I knew that if I didn't want my son to be that afraid, I couldn't be afraid to be a father. Yeah, snap for that too. Word up. So I stopped reacting to that fear. And I started to contemplate my responsibilities and the things that I would love to impart to my son. And two things came up right away. One, I said, no matter what, I want my son to know that I love him. And two, which is more important than one to me, I said I wanted my son to know no matter what circumstance that he may find himself in, he can mold and he can shape his life into whatever it is that he wants. I wanted his name to tell him that he is the craftsman of his life. So I named him Artisan. Yeah, that's my baby boy. That's why the baby cried, man. And I never wanted to use my incarceration as an excuse as to why I don't show up for Artisan. So I call almost every day. Sometimes I call him multiple times a day. Yo, really just to tell him that I love him. And one of my proud dad moments came as a result of me calling, I guess, too much. So one day I called, it had to be about like the fourth time that I called on his day. His mother picks up the phone, she calls him, Artisan, your dad wants to speak to you. I can hear him in the background, he goes, So he gets on the phone, I tell him what I always tell him. I say, hey, baby, I'm just calling to let you know that I love you. His response, and mind you, he's only 3 years old at this time. He goes, I love you too, Dad, but why you keep calling me? That was my response too, but deep down I was kind of hurt when he said that. But even deeper down than that, I was proud. I felt proud because I felt like I accomplished what I set out to do, which is to be a present father. He knows who his father is. I also felt proud because I would much rather have my son ask me, Dad, why are you calling me so much, than for him to wonder why I'm not calling him at all. That feeling felt so good that I started to chase it, which is funny to me because in the beginning, I really tried to run away from fatherhood, but now I'm going for the greatest dad of all times. Now I'm contemplating that. What does that mean? What does it mean to be a great dad? To me, it means raising my son not from a place of fear, but from a place of love. To me, it means to teach him how to be courageous and honest, not with just my words, but through my actions. It means to instill in him generosity, not by just telling him to be generous, but by extending my own hand and being generous myself. It means to teach him how to be confident. And not the kind of confidence that you have when you have on your best attire. I'm talking about the kind of confidence that allows you to move freely because you're just covered in self-love. Now, when I speak about generosity and when I speak about being courageous and honest, and when I speak about having confidence, I speak about being bold. And when I talk about this kind of boldness, I speak of the audacity of love. Fatherhood has inspired me to be this kind of man for my son. Just so that my son could be that kind of man for society. And to me, that's the best part about fatherhood, how it expands your mind. Earlier, Mr. Moore said he wasn't a bad man, but I am. And I will bet every man in here right now that if you contemplate fatherhood long enough, you'll go from just thinking about your child to thinking about the world and civilization as a whole and all of the possibilities that exist. I realized that my previous concept of fatherhood was so narrow only because it derived from a grudge that I held towards my father. Being what my father wasn't was less about being the father and more about showing up my father. But fatherhood has told me that being a father isn't about showing up my father. It's really about showing up for my son. But it gets deeper than that. It's about showing up for your son also. It's about showing up for your daughter. Fatherhood is about showing up for our children. My name is Davon Underdue, and I am the greatest dad of all times.